quarter of the way through the 21st century, we now need to ask ourselves, just how important are the human elements in data management? Well, we're going to be exploring that a bit this week in the Data Radio Show. Hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Data Radio Show. I'm your host, Paul Barlow, and today I'm going to be sitting down and having a chat to Ignition and Iris's Julien Redmond. We're going to have a little chat about what lessons were learned throughout 2024, the shape of change that seems to be happening within the industry. 2024 might have been the year that AI sort of made itself known to the general public, but 2025 is the year that it looks like it's going to become part of the structure of how everything works. So we're going to explore that a little bit. But before we get into that, make sure that you hit that like button, share this page, or subscribe to the channel. It's always good to bring you along on the journey so we can hear a bit from you about your journey with the data management field. And don't forget, you can also sign up for things like our Data Pro newsletter or join us over in the Data Innovators Exchange community. They're all linked in the description down below. Right, let's jump over now and have that catch up with Julien. So, Jules, thank you very much for joining me. You were, I think, our second guest ever this year that we did the show on. It's been almost 12 months since then. We've done, this will be something like episode 46, 47 for the Data Radio Show.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've done one almost every week. It's been really impressive. But I'm kind of curious, looking back on what we did almost a year ago, how your year has been and what your predictions back then were, or what you thought the future might hold, and what the way that the industry's been evolving, changing up a little.
Well, before we get into that, I want to know who was first. Was it Christoph?
Yeah, Christoph was first.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, him. Okay, well, second. So how's my year been?
Yeah.
We've had a good year. Yeah, we've had a couple of really good projects on the services side. So that's good. And Data Vault continues to grow strong. I think we've had probably our best year of training ever, or we're on track to anyway. We're not quite finished the year because we started April 1st through to March 31st. So, but I think we've had some really really large teams come through training. Lots of big institutions taking on Data Vault down in Australia and New Zealand over the year. So all in all, pretty good there. On the Iris front, we've made huge leaps and bounds. We released version 2, which was such a change from version 1. And so we're actually, I heard this morning that version 2.3 is essentially ready for UAT. So 2.3 will be coming out just in the new year, so probably just after people hear this. Which is nice to have another release and add some extra stuff to it. So and we've got some really cool plans for where it's going as well. It's going to be very, very useful to a lot of people, I think.
What do you think has been the driver to having more people come through and do more training? Is there a shift in how people want to use data, or the way that they look at data, or the way that organizations are having the laws changed around them, for example, the EU AI Act or new privacy laws coming into place? What is there a single?
Yeah, I would love to know the answer to that, Paul.
Okay,
I think,
cool. In that case,
no,
yes, that's exactly what it is.
I have some theories. So we have seen a shift to, as I said, some large organisations taking on Data Vault, financial sector, government, and big industries. And so when they do something, they want to do it, especially if they're in a regulated industry, they want to do it with individuals who are certified in the process they're using or the methodology they're using. So we had one of Australia's bigger banks send quite a lot of, actually a couple of their bigger banks, send quite a lot of people this year on training. And so I think that drives our numbers quite a lot. Early on we used to have lots of individuals, but now we tend to have more teams of organisations come through, and then also just the number of people that now have successful data vaults that have been going for a long time, and teams roll over. and and people move on or change jobs or get a promotion or whatever else. And so whoever's stepping into that role needs to understand what data vault is as well. So we now have a lot of customers who, because their data vault is successful and they want to invest in its longevity, and make sure that all the new bodies coming in come and get certification. So I think that kind of those two things happen together. We've also had a couple of large organisations in Southeast Asia um, uh, send people on training, which is nice. Southeast Asia has not done a lot of data vault previously, but it's obviously catching on. And I think just it's probably people got very excited about modeling less and doing data lakes and just and allowing people to kind of self-serve data, and that didn't quite work as well as I think everyone was hoping. And then data virtualization might solve that. I think there's lots of value in it, but it doesn't solve all problems. I think there's probably a bit of a recognition you can't avoid modeling data if you want to integrate it. And so big institutions have come back around to that understanding that actually privacy matters, access control matters, data quality matters, automated test matters, CI/CD matters, orchestration matters, all of these things, and therefore Data Vault has a standard that's going to support all of that stuff. And therefore, let's even though sometimes it is seen as being a bit complicated or complex, or a big body of knowledge to learn, that there's actually there's a lot of value in that body of knowledge. And so I think we've seen certain organisations just kind of come back and realise that okay, we're doing it now.
I kind of see it as like driving a car. Like I've been doing it for years. I know how it works. I know where the key goes. I know accelerator, gear change, all that kind of stuff. But when you're first starting to drive a car, it looks like a big, complicated thing to get your head around.
Yeah.
You're learning to read how the engine feels and how the road feels and all that kind of stuff. I think any kind of data management systems like that as well, looking at it from the outside, it's big and scary. But once you get inside and you see how it works and how it's going to work for you, then it becomes a
Yeah.
lot simpler, a lot easier to deal with.
And you know what? I mean, there's lots of tech vendors who use this is a paradigm shift as the way to sell their software, and they sell some vision of just easy access to any data anywhere. And I've heard AI vendors talking about that kind of stuff as well. And it's just, at least until this point, it's not proven to be true that there is still value in actually governing your data well, modeling it well, integrating it well, so that then you can trust your analytics. Sometimes you just got to do the work.
One of the things that you mentioned there, and it happened with a conversation I had with James Hartwright a few months ago about data modeling being back on the table, as it were. Um, is that one of the things that you're sort of seeing come through as a trend in the industry at the moment that sort of surprised you that it ever went away, or shaping the because to me it makes
Yeah,
me think as well. Why are you not data modeling when you do something like this?
yeah. I would say I'm not surprised it's back. I was surprised it ever went away. Um, the, there is definitely some cool technology coming out. So we're doing some work with Flow BI, who have built, a big AI model that can help, get your data vault model together, based on, profiles data on source systems, and like magic under the covers, I guess. But it looks really good. And so there is probably tools that can help, but it's still modeling data. It's still creating a target model that integrates, like information across sources together, so that then you can create a full or complete 360-degree, whatever you want to call it, view of a particular element, whether that's, a customer, a patient, or a product, or whatever. So, and there is probably more recognition that there is value in integrated data as well. Silos, everyone, like I see these big vendors talking about, like, you just bring in data from any source and you put it in our storage platform. And it's like, yeah, okay, so your silos are now really close to each other, but they're still silos.
Mm-hmm.
So until you've done the integration, it's it's just siloed data stored together. And so there's lots of different ways to approach that, but none of them get around having to do with some modeling. So yeah.
I keep seeing headlines because I suppose it's just my social media feeds. AI is dead. AI is the future. AI's There's so many stories now about artificial intelligence, and there has been for a couple of years now. Um, was there any sort of predictions going into the year that you were like, no, that's never going to happen, and being surprised by, or
Yeah,
anything that sort of
yeah.
shocked you about how AI has evolved this year?
I got right into things like Crew AI
Hmm.
earlier in the year, and the agentic workflow stuff, and how you could create essentially a mini organization of AI agents and give them essentially personas, and roles,
Hmm.
and limit their roles and get them to work together in a flow with all these different priorities. And even give them different tools. So a lot of the tools that give different tools to different agents, and so I did a big deep dive into that, because I think that's when ChatGPT came out, and it was like, here's an AI model, and it's trained on billions of whatever tokens, and you kind of imagine, or I initially imagined, okay, so we're going to just feed this massive model questions and answers. You can do the RAG stuff where you give it retrieval augmented generation, where you give it a knowledge set to read, and then it becomes an expert in that. But all of that is a single kind of monolithic instance of the AI. The agentic stuff is actually far cooler, because you could have 30 agents that are all standalone, large language model instances, or small language model instances, was a term I heard the other day as well. Um, and and then with these different personas, they can build software, or they can solve complex problems, or So that was pretty surprising. But also, I think it there's a huge amount of buzz. Like, we talk about AI a lot. Lots of consultants talking about
Hmm.
AI. The media talking about AI. When I was actually sitting at a round table last week, talking to a lot of industry people, and they were saying, "We're thinking we'll get started with it soon. What should we do?" You know, and there was one organisation who'd given it a try. They assessed what they were doing that had too much risk, because they were going to put out a customer facing um,
Is
uh,
I think I know
AI
who that
driven
is that
solution,
you're
and
talking
they went,
about.
well, maybe,
Yeah.
but no names.
No,
But
no, of
but
course.
anyway, they decided to can that particular project, because it had to have access to customer records to be workable, and they didn't want that risk. Obviously, a very wise risk based
Mm.
decision for that organisation. But everyone else around the table, and there was more than 15 organisations around this table, were saying, "How do we get started? What should we think about?" And so you know, that was a reality check around. Okay, well, that's where we're actually at. Is organisations are trying to work out, how do we learn how to do this stuff, and what are the best initial targets. How do we not do something big and fail?
So going into
Yeah.
next year, then, are those organisations that have been early adopters in this field, who have got the core groundwork and things like solid data management, because you need that to make AI work, are they in a better footing to handle whatever 2025 throws at them? Or is somebody who's coming in going, well, look, they've done trial and error for the last year or two, and this is what we've learned, so we'll build on it now. Are they in a better position to handle 2025 or whatever it's thrown
Yeah,
at them?
yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think the answer is both.
Okay.
So, so the conclusion at this roundtable was essentially, the best way to get started is to pick internally facing use cases, to learn how to manage and run an AI project, and build an AI solution, and have the focus be something that improves your data quality or your data foundation. So one example is, you could use a large language model to trawl through a set of documents and bring out a business glossary of terms and definitions that your business uses, or to look at incidents and classify those incidents so that you get better incident classification and maybe remediation classification, so you can better map, incidents to remediation. Um, so all of those sorts of activities, you're learning how to build an AI solution, you're learning how to run a project, but you're also, the net result, you're improving the foundation for future AI solutions that you'll build on top of that data set that might be then supporting your workers in the field or interacting with customers. So that was a great piece of advice. I think that was a great learning out of that session. Was there's ways to learn and get started that also improve your foundations.
Those foundations as well, like they're core to anything that you do with data. You make sure your data quality is right from the start. The better your quality that you start off with, the less remediation that you have to do during the process of getting everything set up. Um, with with changes that we're seeing around the world at the moment in terms of laws and privacy and stuff like that, um, do you think 2025 is going to see a shift in the way that people perceive those basics of data management?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I live in Australia, and the Australian privacy principles are changing early next year. So there's an update coming to those. So I think it is an absolutely ever evolving sphere. Regulatory bodies are running to catch up. Even the Australian recent ban on social media for people under 16. That's a big deal. It's a big shift, but I think it's being done to protect kids
Hmm.
from the impacts of social media. So there's lots of people who have a free market mindset who think that maybe it's overreach, but we're not a political show, but there is definitely changes that are happening that impact the way you manage systems, and so that if you're a social media company now, you need to deal with at least trying to verify age
Hmm.
and trying to deactivate accounts that are will be no longer legal. So, but then there is GDPR and uh,
The
like
California laws, and yep.
as many acronyms as you can throw
Yep.
throw at a wall, which are all continually being updated, um, and in essence too, I was talking about the agentic workflows. You're going to have AIs that are actually and we're doing some work, some internal testing and stuff on this at the moment about how does an AI agent, request data from a warehouse, for when it needs to provide actual factual structured information as part of its answer to someone. Um, and you can't just give that agent full access to everything in the warehouse because the warehouse is full of sensitive data. So, and also it needs to know who's asking the question. So if you've got an agentic workflow that's 30 agents long, and on the other end of that is a human who's asking a question, and this agent is the one that asks the answer from the warehouse, you need to pass that authentication detail all the way to that agent and say, return only results that are valid for this user. So there's lots of stuff that's happening to try and work all of this stuff out. And there, it's important that organizations are asking the right questions about, not just having someone come in and build them something because it's AI.
Hmm.
Ask the right questions around risk and access and privacy and governance and all of those things, because the implications if you don't are huge. So.
Um, where is a good place for people who might be just starting out to find those resources and to learn where to ask those questions or what those questions should be? Easy.
My number and my email is certainly out there, and obviously Ignition's well placed to help.
Hmm.
I think that it is a bit of a problem because there is a lot of people professing to be AI experts on the interwebs, and you know to some degree, there's lots of people I think who know how to build stuff. There's less there's less people who have spent 20 years working out how to secure and govern information.
Hmm.
And I think it's important to have someone like that in the mix. My team is not a bunch of AI engineers. We are data management people, but we understand the implications of exposing data, or protecting data, and and governing it and integrating it, classifying it, and all those sorts of things that we do. So you've got to have someone like that in the mix. And I think one of our offers that we put out there is a data maturity assessment, and one part of that is actually an AI readiness assessment, and that is looking at your readiness as a business to manage and govern and de-risk these types of projects. From a software capability perspective, it's easy to get tools. It's pretty much every AI tool out there is available as some sort of service, and it's but to govern it, to orchestrate it well, to make sure that has the right guardrails as well, so it doesn't start swearing at people or whatever else. But even that, that's even not the hard problem now. There's great tools like the IBM platform has great guardrails so that it's not going to just start swearing at people. But then to back that up with really good access control for the for access to customer data or those sorts of things, so that it might be very polite, but you still don't want it to accidentally give over your personal details. So.
True. All right, last question for you. 2025, big prediction for the year in terms of the world of data. Not whales will go extinct or Donald Trump will start a war.
Yeah. Well, what I hope is a lot more people learn about Iris and what it brings. So, that's the Data Vault automation tool that we've been developing for quite a while now, and version 2X being out, it's simplified the process of building data vaults. It's made it really intuitive to follow. The new UI is way easier to do. It's also a very small component that can add data vault automation to any big data management platform that exists out there. So if you're in the Microsoft stack and you just want to add data vault automation, it can do that. If you're running Informatica, Talent, whatever it is, one of the big data management platforms, and you need data vault automation, it can just add to that. So we think that it adds huge amounts of value with very, very small amount of cost. So I hope that happens. What do I think will happen? Look, AI is going to just keep plowing on, and I think agentic workflow will become a thing that people start to try and grapple with. But I think most people will focus on a year of doing those internal projects that are improving their foundations, whether they're improving their ability to deal with the risk around data security, or they're dealing with data quality, or data classification, or whatever else. I think that will be that'll be a focus for most industries, and then leading into the year after, we'll start seeing people actually leveraging the skills that they've built and the knowledge that they've built, as well as a mature data platform, to then start doing those cool things that we all know AI is going to do, like an expert assistant for an engineer, or for a dentist, or for whatever. I did see too that the one guy was predicting customers should wait until there is an off the shelf tool that they want with AI embedded in it. And I thought that's a really interesting solution, maybe for a consumer, but for a large organization who has a specific set of source systems, a specific set of internal processes, and maybe a very unique business offering, I think that is not a path that people can wait for. I think that we'll see a lot of development in this space, because if you wait too long, you'll get left behind. So.
Absolutely amazing catching up with you again, Jules. I'm going to sign off here and do all the other stuff that we do. People can track you down on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn, at the Ignition website as well. My face is plastered all over it, my email address, phone number, the whole deal. We would love to chat to people.
Brilliant. And you're floating around on the Data Innovators Exchange.
I'm very present on the Data Innovators Exchange, and so there's classrooms there for Iris and for a bunch of stuff that we provide, but also just in the chat. So yeah, certainly if you've got any questions, reach out if you're interested in a data maturity assessment, we'll be publishing an online self-assessment very, very shortly. So actually, even by the time that this is up, it might even be available. So that'll be on the Ignition site as well. So, you can come and do that and get a snapshot of your AI readiness or your exposure to privacy issues. And no obligation, just a easy self-assessment. So.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jules.
Thanks, Paul. Good to talk to you.
Hey, I want to thank Julien once again for sitting down and joining me for this. We actually caught up with him towards the end of last year, so all before the holiday season kicked in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We've actually spent today doing a whole bunch of planning around a massive amount of awesome content to help data management industry professionals get out there, learn a bit from each other and connect, which you can also do over at the Data Innovators Exchange if you haven't done so already. Look, until next time, look after yourselves, be one with the force, live long, prosper and all the rest of it, and I'll catch you guys next time.